Hello everybody, and welcome to a new Game News Roundup. Well, as the headline suggests, there are potentially leaked images of a prototype of the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Super Switch or whatever Nintendo ends up calling it. I guess we'll probably find out soon. This is following from earlier this month of rumors that the Switch 2 is going to be announced sometime this month, as we're already more than halfway through, potentially the next couple weeks, if this rumor here is accurate at all. And also this rumor reportedly claiming that the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible, which honestly probably makes the most sense, especially when we look here at these prototype images. So yeah, images of the successor Nintendo Switch apparently appeared on Reddit, which were originally from a Chinese social media site. Again, if these images are real, keyword if they are real, treat this as a rumor, treat it with a grain of salt, but if they are real, the design is nearly identical to the current Switch, just a bit bigger screen, a few changes made to it, and obviously the internals will be way more powerful than the original Switch, which came all the way out in March of 2017. And one source who spoke with VideoGamesChronicle, who had been briefed on Nintendo's plan, said the images do match what Nintendo has told its partners and what to expect from the design for the Switch 2. However, the source has yet to actually see with their own eyes the final design of the Switch 2, which is what they've heard from Nintendo plans of what they've told partners on what to expect. So yeah, the leak images also claim and reveal, if they are real, the Switch 2 will include 12 gigabytes of RAM, HDMI 2.1 support, and 256 gigabytes of internal storage. This is up from 4 gigabytes of RAM on the original Switch, as well as up from 32 gigabytes of internal storage on the original Switch, and 64 gigabytes of internal storage on the Switch OLED, which is probably a good thing to have, as I'm assuming we're going to see more and more games probably going to require installs, which is going to take up more space, especially with Call of Duty making its way to likely just the Switch 2. Unlikely we'll see Call of Duty come to the original Switch, but we do know Nintendo signed a 10-year deal with Microsoft to have Call of Duty coming to Nintendo platforms for 10 years, but we have yet to hear anything about that, with Call of Duty Black Ops 6 coming out shortly. So it's likely the 10-year deal will be starting with when the Switch 2 does finally come out, with rumors of it coming out sometime early next year. And Nintendo has announced they will be announcing the Switch 2 by in their current fiscal year, which ends March of next year. And again, with a rumor that it will be announced potentially in the next couple of weeks. But we'll see if they do announce it. Whenever they do announce it, I'll be sure to get a video out as soon as I possibly can, going over all of the details. So yeah, also the image shows the Switch 2 will have a bigger screen than the original Switch, magnetic Joy-Cons, which was previously rumored, and a stand similar to the Switch OLED model, which, you know, bigger stand than the original Switch, and two USB-C ports, one on the top and one on the bottom. And as I mentioned here, this should be treated as a rumor, and with a grain of salt until an announcement from Nintendo is made. So yeah, here there are, I believe, about 12 images have appeared online of this. Most of them, well, you'll see in a moment. But here is it pretty much torn down. You can see what the Joy-Cons are pretty similar to the original Switch. I mean, this only shows so much here. And then here are the Joy-Cons on their side there. As you can see, I think that is bigger than the current Joy-Cons, the buttons on the side there, but I could be wrong. Hard to say if these Joy-Cons, if it looks like this is bigger, so the Joy-Cons are probably bigger than the original Switch. Hopefully, because one issue a lot of people have with this Switch with the Joy-Cons is a little too small. The buttons are a little too close together, and a little bit too small for them. So now here we are with some, you see some images here of the Switch 2, supposedly. As you pretty much like, oh wow, it looks like the Switch, pretty much. Here it is on its bottom side, I believe. You can see the USB-C port there, and either air vents or a couple of speakers on the bottom there. And here on the top, you can see the shoulder buttons and the triggers down there. But one thing, you can see some, it looks like potentially other buttons there, but We'll get into what those might be in a moment. You see another USB-C port there. I believe that is a headphone jack, a spot where you probably input your Switch. I almost say cartridges, but you know what I mean. Micro SD card, the proprietary like micro SD cards, and a few other buttons here on the top part. One would be power, and we'll see what the other buttons here might be. And here on the back, here we go. You can see these potentially 2 other buttons here. I think those are replacing the... Actually, you know what? Here's my Switch. You see on the back there, those bigger buttons. I believe that is replacing the buttons on the current Switch. When you press it, is what releases the Joy-Cons out of your Switch. And then you fling it back. So instead of having a small button, that little black button you see there, it is a bigger button now. I'm guessing that is what that is, and you can see on the back here, the bigger stand. This is a original Switch here, not a Switch Lite, not a Switch OLED. And the current stand is literally just this little piece of plastic, which I'm surprised. I mean, how many times does that break off? And obviously under there is the a micro SD slot for expandable storage there. And then I guess we can go over the top here, and so yeah, looking at it with these buttons here, this is probably power, looking at the original Switch. And then these 2 buttons here are probably volume up and volume down. And you can see similar vents between there and the original Switch. Again, this is an original Switch. And obviously, you can see there's a headphone jack. And then where you input your games. But obviously, and then the USB-C. Extra USB-C port there, which is probably a good thing. Because right now, if you want your Switch on your desk on a stand, you can't charge it because the only place to charge it is on the bottom. And obviously, you have it on the stand, it ain't gonna work. So you can potentially just have it plugged in on the top, have it on your desk, and then you can have it plugged in. You don't have to worry about the battery dying on you. And let's scroll down here. These images here are actually comparing the Switch to, I believe, to the original Switch. Here you can see the bigger screen, which likely suggests also bigger Joy-Cons. You can see the backside here of the original Switch, which does actually line up with my Switch here. This here is where the stand would be of the original Switch on the left side there. And then you can see here the bigger stand here on the back on the new Switch, which does, I believe, match the Switch OLED, but I obviously don't own it, as I have an original Switch. Also, yeah, I can see my green screen is a little wonky with the blue for some reason on that. Anyways. So, yeah. And then you can see the Joy-Cons. So, let's start here. We got the right Joy-Con here. Let me just pop mine out here. If you want to compare the two side by side, fairly similar. An extra button on the bottom here. So, you got the home button and then something else new there. Otherwise, the layout is pretty much the same, and hard to say for sure. But the buttons on the side there, when you play it on its side, obviously you normally have a thing that goes over it. These buttons look bigger than the current Switch Joy-Con buttons, which are really tiny. Just as a heads up. And then also, well, these slide on and off. It does look like these are, you see, magnets that will attach it. So much easier to slide on. So you don't have to slide on and off. You press a button and it probably does something to detach. I'm not an expert on that stuff, but just show that. And then on the back side, I guess I should have just kept this out. You can see the little button to detach the Joy-Cons from the Switch there on the current Switch versus this bigger button, which I'm assuming that is what it's for, because if you're holding this here and here, you're gonna like reach your finger around to press a button to play games. No, very unlikely. That's what that is for. So it's likely replacing the button to detach the Joy-Cons. And then we got the left Joy-Con, which looks pretty identical to the current Joy-Con with the thumbstick, and then not a D-pad, because you know you can play it on its side. You play it on its side, D-pad would be very awkward to use the ABXY or BAX. YX, I guess, technically, on the Switch, and then the minus button on the top there matches, and then just one button down below. And then there is on the back side, again, similar with the bigger button here versus the original. I just figured I might as well get my Switch out, and then we can discuss some of the comparisons. Again, that is if these are real. Remember, treat this as a rumor until an official Nintendo announcement, but it currently does match the current rumors. So, if you want to take a quick comparison, launch original Switch here compared to potential Switch 2, which you see the design, it's pretty much, instead of a huge change, Nintendo is doing a minor change with the Switch 2 compared to the original Switch. Versus, compared to, Nintendo almost always does a huge change sometimes, although if you think about it, the Game Boy Advance, but then the Game Boy Advance to the DS was a huge shift. And the 3DS didn't make much of a huge change from the DS. Obviously, more power and the 3D effect of it, which obviously was used, but not used a ton, which is why they eventually released the 2DS without the 3D aspect in it. So yeah, this, and then of course the Wii to the Wii U, the biggest thing was the gamepad. This feels more like almost I don't want to say a Switch Pro, obviously, but specs-wise, it's going to be a huge jump. It should be likely between the PS4 and PS4 Pro power-wise, but we will see once Nintendo does completely unveil the specs. And honestly, 12 gigabytes of RAM is pretty good. But we'll see. Because 12 gigabytes of RAM is less than the PS5 on the Series X specifically, but is actually more than the 10 gigabytes in the Series S. And obviously, it's three times the amount of RAM compared to the original Switch. And obviously, storage-wise, 256 gigabytes is a nice boost to have. So yeah, I just want to go over this real quickly. Again, if you want to check these out yourself without me scrolling so much up and down these images, there'll be a link below in the description, so feel free to check that out. And feel free to browse VG charts for all... Well, I try to report on as much of the bigger gaming news and even some smaller gaming news as well as gaming sales hardware estimates specifically, as we report on monthly and weekly hardware estimates based on available data, which is extrapolated to get the worldwide estimates. And as always, as I mentioned, adjustments do occur when more data becomes available in the future, which is why they are estimates. However, software-wise, we no longer do software estimates, as we had no way of tracking digital sales, which is a vast majority of sales nowadays, so we only report on official software sales and shipment figures from publishers and developers. But anyways, so yeah, I just want to go over this potential leak here. Let me know, what do you think of these potential leak here for the Switch 2? Are you excited for it after all of these years? If it comes out early next year, that's about 8 years after the launch of the original Switch. There's also rumors that the Switch 2 has been ready for a year or two at this point, but Nintendo deciding to wait to launch it for a few different reasons. One of them is to wait for the price of the parts and everything to come down a bit, so they don't have to launch it for a really high price. They're able to launch it for a slightly cheaper price, say $400 instead of $450 or $500 or whatever, or lose less money on each one sold, waiting for the price to come down. And the Switch 1 was still selling well enough where it didn't make sense to cut the legs short on the original Switch before they launched the Switch 2. And thirdly, which is probably one of the more important things, games. Nintendo wants to make sure they have a strong lineup of games at launch and through its first year or two, pretty much ready to go, a good lineup. Because the original Switch, you had Breath of the Wild as a launch title. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I realize it's just Mario Kart 8 with all the DLC added in, other than the new DLC that's now been released. Came out like a month or two later. You had Splatoon 2, and you had Mario Odyssey, and then some other smaller titles in that first, March, when it came out March 2017 through its first holiday in 2017. They had several big games and medium-sized games on the Switch. I'm assuming they want something similar with the Switch 2. So, obviously, we're not going to get a new 3D Zelda game, because Tears of the Kingdom came out way too recently. So, maybe we'll get a new 3D Mario game at launch. We'll get Mario Kart 9. I don't know, new Animal Crossing and whatever. We'll see. We'll see what Nintendo plans. Hopefully, in the next couple weeks, they'll at least give us a little teaser on the Switch 2. I doubt we'll get any huge announcement, any big details on it. Probably okay, Here's a 2-minute, 3-minute teaser of the Switch 2. Here's a handful of games, and then we'll fully unveil it in January. Type of deal. With it coming out then maybe in March or April. But we'll see. That's just my speculation. I really don't know. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video and all my other videos, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe as I try to cover at least the bigger, interesting gaming news every week. I don't want to spam you all with every bit of gaming news because I'd be doing a dozen videos a day. And you all would be annoyed like, okay, geez, stop spamming us with everything. So... anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you all next time with some more gaming news, gaming sales, and gaming industry information, and potential leaks and rumors. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.